Okay, Commissioners, if you'll take your seats, we'll start the Government Ops meeting to order. First item is Pledge of Allegiance. Item number 2 is adoption of the agenda. Moved by Duzyj, supported by Sauger. Any questions on the agenda? Seeing none, please vote. Is everybody's computer okay? All right. Item number 4, approval of the minutes. We need a motion for that. Moved by Kleinfeld, supported by Duzyj. Please vote on the minutes. Thanks, Andre. Going to item 5, public participation. Anyone wish to address this body from the public? Anyone from the public? Seeing no one from the public, we'll go into item number 6, appointment interview opportunities, Board of Canvassers, two vacancies, 4-year terms. We have 2 individuals in the audience. One is nominated by the Democratic Party and one by the Republican Party. Barbara Ann Van Sickle, she's here. Hi, Barbara. If you want to come up here and just, the microphone there is on, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me today.
Thanks for coming.
You're very welcome. My background is really in human resources and recruiting. I've been involved with the Republican Party for about 10 years, and I was the chair of the Macomb County Republicans for 1 year. Love working to get candidates elected, and was very involved in the last election. And I very much just talking to a colleague and saying that people need to get involved today. And quite frankly, I think this would be a very, very good opportunity for me. And my philosophy is, if you don't get out there and vote, and if you don't get out there and do something today, you don't get to complain. So that's my philosophy. Like I said, I've been involved in the Republican Party, know Don pretty well, and I really look forward to serving on this commission. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Any commissioners have any questions or comments? Commissioner Brown?
I will say that she's been very responsible and very attentive to details as long as I've known her. I've known her a long time, and she certainly would do well to honor that position by being attentive to the details that are required. And so, thank you.
Wonderful. I have a question. I'm going to ask both of you this. So for Barbara, can you just tell us a little bit for some of the new commissioners what does the Board of Canvassers do? What are the challenges or things that you do?
Well, one of the things that we hear a lot about today is voter fraud. And I think the last election, proved that there's a lot of things that do go on that we don't know about. And the more that I've talked to county clerks, it seems to me that there are some things that seem very innate. For instance, when you have records of deceased, you have deceased people, and you can't exactly look in the newspaper because not everybody actually puts a death notice in the newspaper. And you would think there's a database that would have that check from the perspective that a lot of absentee ballots go out to those people. Well, quite frankly, if there's someone that lives in that house and that really technically wants to forge that, it seems to me today that that's almost something that can be done fairly easily. Not saying that it's done all the time, but again, I think there's some safeguards that are in place. And I really would like to understand a little bit more about voter fraud, because you hear one side say one thing and one side say another, and we know sometimes the truth is somewhere in the middle. So I think that's part of it. Again, like I said, I've been involved in other aspects of the party, but I let's face it, that's what we're here for. We're here to vote for the candidates and vote for the people that we believe are the best for office, and this is a good way to be involved in something like that.
Wonderful, thank you. Any other questions or comments, commissioners? Seeing none, thank you for coming here today.
very
And I
welcome.
believe the final vote on this is on this Thursday. This Thursday will be the
Okay,
final vote on this.
Great,
Thank you, Barb.
very much.
Next is Michelle DeBozart, nominated by the Democratic Party. Hi, Michelle, how are you?
Hi, I'm
Good to
thank
see you.
I am Michelle DeBozart, and as of this week, I've been a resident of Clinton Township for 16 years and a resident of Macomb County for nearly 40. I'm retired and currently volunteer at St. John Macomb Hospital in their pet therapy department, and I'm also the treasurer of a comprehensive youth services. It's a Macomb County nonprofit organization that provides programs for homeless youth and also counseling in the jail, Macomb County Jail, and at our office. My interest in the election process began in 9th grade in my civics class. I had an instructor who announced to the class he had never given an A to a girl. I took up that challenge, aced the class, and began my interest in politics. I've experienced different aspects of the election process as a daughter of a school board member, a staff member for a congressman for numerous years, the spouse of a state legislator, and treasurer to countless candidate and political committees. As a member of the Board of Canvassers, I've assisted in the completion of 42 elections so far, missing only one due to a medical issue, 11 recounts, and 4 ballot container inspections. I take very seriously the honor and responsibility of serving as a member of the Board of Canvassers. Since serving in 2006, it has allowed me to gain considerable experience in ensuring the accuracy and integrity of the voting and counting process in accordance with state law. I believe that my experience to this point would benefit Macomb County, especially given the changes in equipment that are going to be coming to all of the communities. I look forward to, again, working with the other board of the canvassers to ensure the accuracy of the elections in the county. And you asked about what we do. Our role is primarily after election. We gather all of the poll books. We review every single poll book. We make sure that everyone that walked in that day, their vote was represented on the tapes that come out of the machines. If they don't, we become detectives. We try to figure out why. And if there is a point where the county or city clerks can't help us, the election workers can't help us, we drag in everybody with their ballots and their tapes and rerun everything to make sure that everyone that walked in that door that day, that their vote counted. And it's something that I thoroughly enjoy doing and hope to be able to serve the county again.
Very good, Michelle. Any questions or comments for Michelle, commissioners? Okay, seeing none, thanks for coming here, Michelle. And again, the vote on this will be on Thursday. Okay. Go on to the next board, the Human Services Board, 1 vacancy, 3-year term to expire October 31st, 2020. We have 2 individuals, Reverend Ralph Brown Jr. Reverend Brown, if you want to come up to the mic and tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Thank you for having me. My name's Reverend Ralph Brown. I'm the recently retired pastor of Hope United Church of Christ, located at 15 in Garfield Road. I have served in the United Church of Christ for 38 years. As a part of that, for 19 years, I served Evangelical Homes of Michigan, an elder care organization related to our church, and was the founding administrator of Evangelical Homes Sterling Heights, located very near the Lakeside Mall, back in 1988. It seems like it was a long time ago now. And so I've served in the role of administrator, and I've been involved with elder care for a long, long time in my ministry. And so when I heard about this vacancy, I thought this would be an opportunity for me to use some of my expertise. Along with having served as an employee of the Evangelical Homes, I was also a member of the board after I had left them to return to parish ministry and served as the vice president of that board for a number of years. So I believe I bring some awareness and some expertise to the task and would look forward and using some of that background to look at Martha T. Berry and its ministry to the people of Macomb County. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. Questions, comments? I have Chair Bob Smith.
Thank you, Reverend. How are you? Thank you for coming.
Good to be here.
We had a chance to speak before this meeting, and I remember you mentioning something about being involved in several construction projects also with your former life. And I know that Martha T. Berry is going to be going through some changes with their building and some reconstruction, and I thought that what you had to say might be beneficial for you here.
Well, I was actually involved with the final stages of construction of Evangelical Home Sterling Heights, which is a long-term care facility, but also with the construction of Brecken Village, a continuum of care retirement community in Saline, Michigan, which involved several stages of that continuum of care. So I've been involved with construction processes, and also at Hope United Church of Christ in 2011, we built a new sanctuary, fellowship hall, and education wing for that church as well. So I've had some experience overseeing some construction projects in
Great.
the course of time.
And do you have a pretty good understanding on the workings of this board right here and what you'd be asked to do on this board?
My understanding is that I would be involved in providing governance oversight for Martha T. Berry, and that would be a major piece of it, but I understand there's some other things as well.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Commissioner Carabelli?
I apologize. How long have you lived in Macomb County?
I've lived in Macomb County for about 2.5 years. I served Hope Church since 2004, but only moved into the county a couple of years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thank you for coming here, Reverend. And
Thank you.
again, we'll be taking a final vote on this for Thursday. Next candidate is Robert Fulner. Is Robert Fulner here in the audience? Okay, we don't see Robert, so we'll close that portion of the agenda and go on to item number 7, Government Consultant Services, Gary Owen. How you doing, Gary? Good to see you.
Good to see everybody. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. I know you guys have some important things on the agenda. First of all, the legislature is in right now. They are in full speed ahead until it's time to go on a 2-week break for deer hunting and Thanksgiving starting November 13th, and then they'll come back for 3 weeks in December and finish up the agenda. It's been a slow year in Lansing, new House leadership, a lot of angling on what's going to happen next year in 2018, which will be a full year of politics. You've got U.S. Senate seat open, of course, with Senator Stabenow running for re-election, the gubernatorial, Attorney General, Secretary of State, all of Congress, both the House and Senate. And this year, or actually I should say next year, there's 24 of the 38 Senate seats will be wide open and not with incumbents. So you can imagine a lot of folks running from the House, a lot of folks coming from county commissions all over the state to run for those seats. And so a lot of moving parts as we head into next year. And because of that, I think that there hasn't been a huge legislative agenda. A few things that they are really focused on is number one, I would say at the top of the list as far as time goes is no fault insurance. The Speaker of the House and Mayor Mike Duggan and a pretty broad bipartisan coalition came together 3 weeks ago. They announced a package of bills that would mandate some rate relief, and I'm happy to answer any of the policy questions, but the tenets of the bill is basically a 30 to 40% reduction in auto insurance rates, and also currently there are seniors in the state, which is the only state in the nation that both pay into the auto insurance coverage but are also covered by Medicare, a loophole that they're hoping to get rid of. The mandated rate relief does come with an escape clause. It allows for insurance companies to petition the state to say that they're unable to give the rate relief. That's certainly a point of contention, and I would say that it is a very contentious issue right now, and it's only going to heat up. You've got a large portion of the Republican caucus that is supportive in the House, and a few Democrats, I would say up to 6 or 7. And that'll be coming to a vote this week in committee, and then it will surely turn into kind of a floor conversation and how it gets done. The Speaker of the House, this is his number 1, 2, 3 issue. He recently announced for his bid for Attorney General, and this is certainly something that he wants to make everyone aware of as an accomplishment that he was able to achieve in the House. So something to be watching for as we move over the next month or so, and they try to push that through. Second piece is a 911 fee/infrastructure bill, and I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of this bill. It's something that's being pushed by the governor's office and sheriffs around the state, but essentially, state currently collects 19 cents on calls per month, for lines per month, I should say, and that fund puts out about $37 million and is going to be insolvent here relatively soon, just in the need for new infrastructure around the state for 911 infrastructure. The bill will increase that to 25 cents from 19 and allow for them to do some infrastructure investments down here in southeast Michigan, which they've been pretty successful in up north. But it also would increase the allowable rate for the counties from 42 cents to 55 cents. And so that Macomb County currently levies 0, which is abnormal for a county of this size. For example, Wayne does 42, Washtenaw does 46, Oakland does 42 cents, and those are all the max that the county commission's allowed to approve. So the bill is Senate Bill 400. It's starting to move through the process, and I know you guys will hear a lot more about that bill, and there's a companion bill in the House. Any questions on either of those 2 bills?
Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Carabelli, do you have? Okay. Well, I see. I'll use the computer list. So Commissioner Smith, you're first.
Hi, Gary. Thanks for coming by. So I have 2 questions for you, and one of them is just more of an explanation, or if you wouldn't mind sharing with everybody. You said that we're one of the only counties, or certainly one of the largest, that does not levy a fee on the per line for this, yet we still pay, correct? We pay out of our general fund, and by not levying the fee that most other communities levy on their phone lines, that helps offset that.
I don't have the exact numbers. I believe that the county gets around $636,000 from kind of the statewide pot, and that dispatch services cost somewhere around $10 million. So, I mean, the cost is still there, but the ability to recover costs through that 42 cents that you have the authority to levy, you guys currently do 0. So I have no idea what 42 cents would bring back to the county, or 40 cents, et cetera.
Right. So let me understand what we talked about. So we can levy as a board or as a county, I'm not sure, but whatever, that's irrelevant, 42 cents without a vote. However, we can go out to the people to vote on a 911 tax or levy on the phone systems up to a higher amount, even.
$3, yes.
Okay.
So actually in statute right now, the county commission can levy by itself up to 42 cents. And if desired, you could put a ballot initiative to the people for a millage up to $3.
Okay.
And a number of counties do that. I don't have the list in front of me, but at least 4 or 5 do $3, and then there's several that are in the 2 range, several that are in the $1 range, and higher than 42 cents.
In no other county like Oakland or Wayne is 0 like us as far as the amount that they levy just per board, right?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. I don't know of another large county that says 0.
Okay, and I wanted to just bring that up because I'm sure that most commissioners had no idea about this, nor did I, that that's even an issue that A, we could bring as a county, or B, we could talk to the executive about bringing as a millage if possible. Helps offset our general fund, and it's certainly not something that doesn't happen all over the state. I just wanted you to at least understand the dynamics of it. And then the insurance rate, one of the questions for the insurance bill, does it eliminate the, how Detroit residents pay a higher rate than Clinton Township residents, which pay a higher rate than, say, Washington Township? Does that bill look at eliminating that too, or is that part of that, do you know?
One of the parts of the proposal that the mayor asked for that he hasn't been successful in is eliminating the ability to give insurance rate based on zip code and credit score, which is pretty discriminatory for certain communities, and that is not part of the package right now. It's a very contentious issue, obviously, with some heartwarming stories that they hear and have people in their district come to Lansing and talk to them about, but for no fault, this is the medical coverage I would have had, and et cetera. So, at the same time, they've got some outstate folks that doesn't hurt their district. So at this point, it really is political, and it's going to be interesting to see. For example, a big thing is what fee schedule it will fall into and what that means for certain hospital systems and how they're able to take care of some of these tier 1 traumas that come in, and what they're able to do to recuperate costs. So,
okay, thank you. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you. I do have some questions that weren't related to those two bills as well. I'm assuming the presentation is you've completed.
No, I've got a few other things that I'm going to go through, but please ask anything.
Do you want to?
Well, I'd prefer if we just talk about the things he's talked about so far.
Okay.
So we'll hold off on you on that.
Well, I've got one 911
Go ahead,
question.
please.
I had heard that the cell phone company, the monies collected from cell phones, had not grown over the years, although my house went from 1 cell phone user to, 5 cell phone users, and that there seems to be an honor system and that there may be an issue with that. Is that on anybody's radar, or was that something that was talked about in the past and just sort of died, or was it even discussed in Lansing? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not aware, but I can ask more questions. It's starting to get on my radar more and more, and I'm trying to dig deeper into learning some of the relationships between what goes to the carriers, for example, the copper lines and what was reimbursed to keep those copper lines functional versus now when it's voice over internet, VoIP, that is a collection for a lot of this stuff. So it is kind of convoluted, and it's transitioning from those old hardline rates and infrastructure improvements to like the new internet-based, cell phone-based world, and trying to figure out that transition. So I will find out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Carabelli.
Sure. A couple of quick questions. Explain to me when you say infrastructure for 911, what are we talking about?
Well, of course, just the hard lines that go into individual homes. There was a fee based on the line per month that would go towards 911 infrastructure. And as you move towards this kind of, high-tech fiber that's going into the ground and transitioning, it's who's going to pay for that fiber. And so it's using the fund that comes from those fees to put that in to ensure that, there's 911 capabilities all over the state. And there's the ability to, utilize 911 services.
Okay, I guess that's maybe where I have a disconnect. I'm picturing wireless. I'm picturing every police department, 911 center has all their own equipment. Each community will pay for their own. Counties, we have ours at the Comtech Center. That's why I'm trying to understand those funds. Is it to offset the operator or the deputy that's answering the phone, the dispatcher? I'm not understanding the 911 funds. Now, I do know that I have 6 cell phones in my house, and I do see the tax on it, that they're at least collecting it, so I do know that. Now, if we're getting it back, that I don't know. So I need to have, I guess, an understanding. I'm not catching what those funds are for because I don't have a house phone anymore. So yes, they wouldn't have it, but you have it on the cell phone. So I guess I need to have an understanding of how that works.
So there's two distinct pots. One's a state pot, and that's the 19 cents that they collect per line per month. The bill actually would increase that to 25 cents. The second pot, that's strictly local, to be divided up based on your county-wide 911 plan. That's the pot of money that currently in Macomb is not levied.
I guess, let me digress. What is that pot of money to be utilized for?
For example, the new infrastructure necessary would allow for dispatchers, if someone was to call on a cell phone, locate them via GPS. Currently, that capability is not built in to 911 dispatching. So there was a story told at committee about a lady who was driving and her car was submerging. She called 911, and if she would have had the GPS capabilities and that fiber and technology would have been in that district, they would have been able to probably reach her, but they didn't know where she was. So that's a major technical enhancement that they're doing statewide. Through all of this, I'm getting way in over my head here,
Okay,
but
no, and I'll do some research, because I'm trying to understand, because,
Executive Deldon, please.
Just if I might add, I think one day this week, it might be Wednesday or Thursday, or one of your next meetings, Vicki Wolper and Sheriff Wickersham are going to be here to talk in greater detail about the 911, the very stuff that Gary's speaking about. But Commissioner Carabelli, they could probably, or at least Vicki could probably answer your questions.
all right.
I think that's Thursday full board, Mark. I believe that's, we'll have that Thursday full board. Please, continue.
the next question on the no-fault insurance, I don't know, we all read a lot of stuff, and we hear a lot of stuff. What is right, what is wrong, lifetime, health benefits if you get hit in an accident. But yet other states, these people are still being taken care of. I don't know how they build those mousetraps. But, one thing to add is that, I don't know if any of you had to take your children, God forbid, to the hospital for whatever reason. And, the first words out of everybody's mouth, did it happen at work? Did it happen at school? Did it happen in a car accident? Did it happen, where did it happen? It's like, holy cow. It's like, we got some serious issues that need to be addressed before they even want to treat somebody. They want to know where this happened so they know what pot that they're going to be going after. So again, just my little tidbit. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Romano?
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Gary. My questions were somewhat along the lines of Commissioner Carabelli's. And you bring this infrastructure, this additional tax, and that's what it is, an additional tax. I'm sure we get taxed for this, we get taxed for that, taxed for this. So right now we have 911 service that's being given to our residents here in Macomb County, and there's no fees involved for that 911, or there's a very small fee. Is that correct? Do you know?
Currently, the fee is a statewide fee at 19 cents per call per line per month.
Okay, and the increase in that is for the infrastructure, which I think Mr. Deldon said would probably be explained to us more this coming Thursday, because as Commissioner Carabelli says, I too cannot get my head around this. Everybody's
Sure.
asking for money for infrastructure when,
Yeah.
in fact, there is a 911. I know you're talking about the GPS that could be located, but I don't know. It just seems that every time we turn around, somebody's taxing us for something, and this is something we've had in place right now, and it's working well. And I don't know. You know what? I'll wait till Thursday, Gary, till we have the
And just-
Sheriff Wickersham come in.
Thank you, Commissioner. And just for clarification, the bill is very separate than, whatever conversation is going to happen at the county level. I just wanted to make folks aware that there is a bill that is essentially increasing the state fee and then just allowing for the counties to levy a higher amount than 42 cents, taking that up to 55 cents. So
I heard that.
Just on that bill is moving through, and I thought that the commission should be aware, whether or not you all choose to weigh in or not.
And the other side of that is people have been paying taxes right along. All of a sudden now we want to get, not only are we increasing their taxes, we want to put another fee onto their 911, which just doesn't sit well with me. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Brown?
Thank you. Final with Commissioner Romano and Commissioner Carabelli on this 911 fee. The county doesn't need the additional fees from the state, so I think maybe our delegation ought to be saying no to that. I mean, based on what I know, we haven't needed that money for anything. We've been able to fund our own 911 system with the existing fees we have, so we haven't needed to tax anybody anymore. So we don't need it anyway. So that's taken right off the table. And for the need for an additional state tax, I'm questioning what benefit, and we'll get those answers Thursday when Vicki comes here, about what benefit we get from the state tax fund for that. But both of them are, sound unnecessary. Where's the Macomb County delegation at regarding this insurance reform bill that's pending up there?
I think it's scattered, depending on, I don't know that there's a consensus amongst the delegation. It's a 5-5 split in Lansing right now, within the delegation on the House side. I think that Senator Brandenburg, I'm unsure where Senator Rocco was and Senator Beta, but I believe Senator Brandenburg supported the Senate plan last term. I'm unsure where folks are on the House plan because there has not been an official whip on the floor. It's just been committee debate.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Commissioner Duzyj.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Gary. Nice to see you. A couple of things. As far as the 911, whenever somebody gets their bill from cell phone usage and so on and so forth, it's outrageous that you're quoted one price, and then once they start adding in all the taxes and fees and everything else, you're adding at least another 30% onto your bill. And I actually agree with my colleagues here that this 911 business, the fee schedules and structures, the way they're done for cell phones is a little on the absurd side. But auto insurance in my district that runs from 8 Mile Road to 14 Mile Road, I would hazard to say that from 16 Mile Road down, just about everybody is redlined. We're paying outrageous fees for insurance for our homes, for our houses, for our cars, and so on and so forth. If anything, I'd like you to take a look into the redlining of insurance in the southern areas of the county, and see what we can do to get rid of some of these fees and so on and so forth, because some of the folks that I've talked to are just getting killed on their insurance bills. And if there's anything that we can do from this area going forward, I'd appreciate any help we can get on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Andre. Commissioner Kraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to piggyback off of something you said real quick when you were talking about the car insurance and the Macomb delegation and where they stand, and you said it's about 50-50. I would say that that's accurate, but it's not 50-50 split partisan. There's two separate groups, and it's blended because they're also working on a second bill for no fault that's not this. And I think it's causing more of a split amongst the reps, especially the Macomb reps.
And just to clarify, what I meant by 50-50 is currently there's 10 House members from Macomb, 5 are Democrats, 5 are Republicans. I think that I have no reference on who's a yes or who's a no on no fault, other than just some conversational stuff with members.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that little tidbit from what I'm hearing up there too, is that it is split, but it is also split amongst the partisan groups as well.
To your point, Commissioner, there's a second bill that should be coming out from the opposition relatively soon that will preserve the current system and grab some of the low-hanging fruit and some of the other reforms they believe to be necessary. So it's the beginning of the conversation, and it should develop pretty intensely over the next 30, 60 days.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no other, any other questions, Commissioners? Yeah, so we're all done with insurance and 911 for right now, so if you can continue to.
Sure, and I'll try to keep the
subject.
end relatively quick. I did want to bring up a couple things. One, community mental health. This continues to be a struggle at the state level, and John Kinch obviously deserves all the credit in the world for how hard he's working on behalf of the county up there in kind of a world that's changing pretty fast, and a conversation that is working against him at times, and we've been working really hard to get him in front of kind of the highest level, the department, the governor's office, et cetera. He was looking at a $12 million shortfall for this fiscal year. We worked really hard with several members of the delegation, several House and Senate members from Macomb, and we're able to achieve a $5 million appropriation towards that shortfall, which was really positive. It was nice to see the state help John out in that way and help the community mental health system out here. There's still another 5 to 7 million that we hope to get in the next year to cover that shortfall. So we'll keep you informed as that debate goes forward. But the House Speaker and several others stepped up to make that appropriation a reality. So that was an accomplishment in the July budget. And then one other piece for commissioners, that natural resource trust fund projects are going on right now, being scored at the state level. And if you have projects in your community, and we're happy to show which projects those are, we are working to try to get scores up and make sure we can get as many projects funded here in Macomb as possible.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Kleinfeld, you want to talk to him about some other items?
Yeah, Bob, did you? No, I was. Okay. Okay. I was at a drain board meeting this morning, and I wanted to ask you some questions about that. There was apparently lobbying to take place to change the laws regarding the drain board makeup specifically to Macomb County and not to any of the other counties from you. Is that correct?
Senator Kowal had a bill last term. It was actually in reaction to essentially some political things, but between the former drain commissioner and the drain commissioner in Oakland County. And Senator Kowal introduced a bill to basically bring Macomb in line with the way that Oakland operated. So that bill passed last year. I believe it was close to unanimous in the Senate, and I think there was 3 or 4 no votes in the House.
Did you have a position on that?
As GCSI?
Yes.
No, we wouldn't weigh in on that. The county executive came to Lansing and did testify in support of the bill.
Okay, so I absolutely understand the idea of the makeup having a county executive representative and a representative out of Public Works and a representative from the commission. I think where I take issue and where it goes awry is the county executive can choose their representative and the Public Works Director can choose her representative, but the county commission cannot. It has to be somebody from that drain. So we frequently have drain board meetings where 6 commissioners have to be there. What was my vote today? Took about 5 minutes. I had to drive up there, cast like 3 votes, leave, and then it's somebody else's turn to sit down, and then it's somebody else's turn. And nobody talked to us about that bill. None of us knew that that bill was up there and how it affected us as a commission. So before you were, last year you gave us a lot of reports on a lot of things, and this was something that directly affected the commission and affected commissioners that have jobs elsewhere and has created a big hardship to me. And what I would like to see, if you're going to lobby on our behalf as well, is I absolutely believe there should be representation from the county exec's office. I think that's much better than the makeup was before. But I think that the board has to have the ability to name somebody and then to name an alternate, so that we, if the person can't make it, an alternate. Bob came today to sit in, and the way it's written, we can't do that, and it's kind of become a hardship for 6, 7 board members to show up, for an hour-long meeting. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
It makes sense. I know that Commissioner Smith and I spoke about that at the beginning of the year, and we talked about possible remedies. So if there is a need to work on some changes, we're happy to take those forward.
Yeah, please, Chair Smith.
Thanks, Commissioner Kleinfeld. We did, Gary and I spoke about this earlier in the year about exactly what you had mentioned. I spoke with Mark Hackle and I spoke with Candace Miller, and neither one of them are opposed to, having the board chair as the alternate, right? So commissioner in District 20 or 13, or the board chair, right? So that way, if I'm there, I can cover for everybody. So that being said, I have been speaking with a few people in Lansing about looking at rewriting that, just to add that caveat in there that we would have the ability to have one person as the alternate on these drain boards to solve this problem. Because if we would have been spoken to about it before, we would have identified the fact that a lot of the commissioners are part-time, they have other jobs, and that's not really, they don't find out about these meetings until the last Thursday before the Monday, right? So it's kind of tough to adjust that schedule. We've been allowing substitution there, but I'm not sure necessarily if it's exactly by the letter of the law. So we are looking at changing some things. I'll speak with Gary more about it afterwards, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, and I would just add, as long as, I've spoke a little bit with Representative Marino and a few others about this issue too, so look forward to moving whatever consensus policy you guys come up with forward.
Right, and like I said, I don't think anybody disagrees with the makeup change. I think that was, a common sense move. It was just the little caveat of trying to get 4 to 6 commissioners there. Okay.
Just that, and when it's something specific to the commission, that whether we're for it or against it, that we know about it. We didn't know about this, and so it got me wondering, are there other things specific to Macomb County that might be lobbied for that we don't know about? I just think that we should know. When it doesn't include the rest of the state, it was specific to our county. It's something that I feel that the commission should have had knowledge about. Thank you.
And I think that's fair, Mr. Chair. The final language of this bill came together in the last 11 days of the lame duck session. It was, I believe, one of the last bills to be sent to the governor's office in that 2-year session. So it did come together pretty rapidly, and I'm more than happy to take the blame on the lack of communication, and we'll address the issue and change it.
Wonderful. Next on the list, Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. Medical marijuana bills up in Lansing, the state seems to be drifting towards a referendum on legalizing marijuana. This comes at a time when the opioid epidemic is getting such publicity, as it should be. It's an epidemic across the state. And anybody in any medical field will recognize that marijuana is an entryway drug, and there's such abuse on these whole things. Is there anyone talking about this in Lansing? But I mean, they just seem to be tone deaf, it appears to me. They're enabling this to gradually move itself forward from plodding along. Is there any, where's the opposition against this? Is there any opposition at all in the Lansing legislature that stands against this? I mean,
I would assume that the majority of House and Senate members would be opposed to any sort of legalization efforts. I think that's not the case with medical. It passed with 3/4 of the vote in the House and Senate because they had to amend the Constitution. So they did have to pass those bills with 3/4 vote, and the department right now is putting together rules just strictly on the medical side. The ballot initiative is different, of course, in that they do have over 300,000 votes to put recreational marijuana on the ballot in November of 2018. And I would assume, and this really is an assumption, that the majority of electeds would not support the recreational side of it at this time. I'm sure there's several that would. But yeah, I think that in Lansing, it's considered two very distinct pots of, public policy.
But even the medical marijuana is so riddled with loopholes, it's a joke. People say, I got a medical marijuana card. It's like, well, that's just legalized dope smoking for no reason. I mean, that's all that is. It's not as, so hopefully they're working to tighten that up.
I think they are.
I mean, every township I go to is concerned about. They all don't know what to do with. Do they follow federal regulations which say it's illegal, period, or do they got to pass an ordinance that prohibits certain things, this or that? And that's still still an open question as far as I know.
And the local government's actually the only way you could ever have a facility in the local government is if there was an opt-in. It's instead of an opt-out. So in the new law, locals actually have to go on record and vote to opt in to allow for one of these 5 or all these 5 types of licenses to locate in the locality.
Okay.
So yeah, the rules are going to think of a blend of like liquor control rules and gaming control rules, and trying to get as strict as possible on, who's allowed to be in the industry, et cetera. On the patient side, I don't know that a ton will change on the ability for folks to get cards.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Toko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gary, with regard to the community mental health portion, was this, my understanding was that it was not a $5 million appropriation, but an allowance for community mental health to sort of shift the columns in which they reported the money to stay out of that risk corridor.
I can get the exact language with an explanation so that it makes more sense, but it was my understanding that the final part of it was basically $5 million in relief for that $12 million shortfall.
Can you follow up on that? Because we just had a presentation on that, and I think a lot of us were unclear as to how that was, and whether or not that it was an accounting method or if it was an actual relief to the community mental health funds. What work is GCSI doing on behalf of CMH?
Basically as asked. So anytime, we worked together with Mr. Kinch on a number of things. We took John in to meet with Director Nick Lyon and his team last year as we were starting to look at some creative, methods. He's also working in some of the work groups and kind of just keeping us informed on how those are going on, for example, Section 298 and how that works and just trying to make a connection with some of the House and Senate leadership that are on those appropriation committees and not allowing basically the association and this massive group of community mental health stakeholders for Macomb to kind of get lost in that.
So are you actively working on it? I mean, are you guys dedicating a significant amount of time?
Not lately. At a time there was when the first time 298, for example, started getting developed, we got out in front of it and killed it successfully with John. The second time around, this time around, it was basically a done deal for a lot of these legislators to get something out of Section 298, and that's still delayed, a little bit. But I would say, in the last month, I have not talked to John, but there's a time when he and I were doing a lot of work. So it kind of comes and goes, depending on needs, I would say.
Are you assisting with the $7 million shortfall at all? Or
yeah,
what's your role in that?
Just having pretty regular conversations with House and Senate leadership to make them realize that, the first bite of the apple was one thing and that we're coming back for more.
Okay. Could you give us some follow-up information on how, if this $5 million was an appropriation or if it was just an accounting shift?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I have no other speakers. Is that it for today, Gary?
Yes, it is.
Okay, no other speakers. We'll take need to receive and file this. Moved by Kraft, supported by Lucido, and please vote.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Gary. Drive safe. It's got it way back, right? Okay. Item number 8, Budget Review Board of Commissioners. That's bad. Okay, it's been moved by Brown, supported by Kraft. Will Patty come up?
Oh, see, we don't have Steve come up to kick us off?
Patty and
Tell
Steve.
us, I'm just kidding. We don't have anything going on. Steve, tell us we have nothing new.
It's very static, which is good news. So, the budget's on C19, no new positions, about a 6% decrease from the prior year. A lot of that's driven by the changes in the way we're charging pension and retiree health care chargebacks. Operating expenses, about a $500 increase in supplies and services, a $500 decrease or $500 decrease in supplies and services, corresponding $500 increase in conferences, seminars. Everything else is fairly unchanged. So, again, no new positions. I'll just turn it over to Patty.
Chair Smith wants to speak
Great,
for 1
and,
second.
Although we don't have, no, not to you, Steve. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I don't have any questions for you.
Okay.
You're out.
You're free.
Obviously, there's no one in the audience to really hear this, but since we're a public body and this is being recorded, we will go through a general, quick budgetary presentation. Obviously, if any questions are afterwards, that's fine. I'm going to let Patty go through this since our staff normally takes care of all this stuff. I don't want to take credit for what you're doing. I'll speak to a few things that are going on in it, but Patty, take us away.
Okay. I just started with our presentation with our mission statement, and you can all read, so I know you probably have this memorized anyway. Basically, we're a public forum for the public to interact with their government, and you guys take care of the budgetary oversight. We have several current board programs that many have been in place for years, and some are newer. And we try to expand, change, or adapt each year so that we better serve our public and also meet the goals of the commissioners. So the newest thing we did in 2017 was to adopt a resolution to establish an older adults advisory committee. And once the budget process is through, we'll go ahead and start with getting that in place. And we do have plans, future plans. We'd like to reinstate the Student Government Day, and we'd like to expand the Yoga at the Hill program because we've gotten several requests for that, and we would like to implement some current events roadshows. Just to recap some of the things that have been going on around the office in 2017, as Steve said, our expenses from year to year are about the same. What we did with some of our expenses last year is aside from Mike Keys becoming full-time and Laura becoming part-time, we brought Crystal on, and we brought Mike Owen, and we brought Adriana on, and basically I was the one who stayed the same. So we had quite a bit of change in our staff, but everything's working great. We deployed the board sync system, including all of this technology that we're using right now, which we had no idea at this time last year what it was going to look like. So that's been a big change, but we've really rolled with it, and I'm super proud of the staff for educating themselves and the rest of us on it. Mike K, Crystal, they're all really, really good with us. We've been sharing space with planning and economic development since mid-February, and that is supposed to come to an end at the end of this month. Supposed to. Anyway, they've been roommates with us, so we have kind of taken on some additional expenses for that, but we wanted to be a good neighbor and a good collaborative partner in the county. This next point, there were a lot of things that came up since we had our renovation done, and in order to make practical use of some of our space, we had to buy things, we had to change things, and those are things that we dealt with as a part of our regular budget, and we don't predict that we'll have expenses like that next year. We got a new copier, which was a great thing, and we got Surface devices. You might have noticed them with some of the staff. We've demoed them and tried them out, and we have built into the budget for all the commissioners to get those type of devices to take with you next year. So, as part of our goals, we wanted to establish career tracks to challenge staff, to keep staff, and to develop skills. Did you want to go, or do you want me to keep going? Okay, all right. So in our 2018 budget submission, what we did was we subtracted the legislative analyst that we had projected adding in 2017 when we reviewed the budget in 2016. There's a couple reasons for that. We did do interviews, and we weren't successful at getting just the right fit. And so we have determined that that need is best addressed through contract services. And in order to keep up with the goals of the board, we added public relations manager, which is a position that is found elsewhere throughout the county in the Department of Roads and Public Works and some other departments. The budget net impact for that change is 0. We just basically switched out those two positions. Public relations manager will help address some commissioner outreach goals. Social media is basically the main way that most people receive their information, so we need to expand those channels. We need to fully utilize our video production capabilities, And these things require a higher technological skill set. And also, we think the public relations manager will be able to support an increase in commission district outreach activities. So just to give you all a hand throughout the county.
And just to add to that, Patty, is the legislative analyst position came around last year as a position we thought we needed for the budget, overall budgeting. When we started looking at it, when we started interviewing for it, when we realized that what was going on this year was a little different than what had been going on, realized that we could cover that position a little more finite with the contract services, but we also saw other needs going where we want to go with this commission. And back to the community outreach, the stuff that we used to do for years and years before we switched over this form of government. All of these positions kind of adapt year to year when you see what's going on until we finally get the perfect fit. Doesn't mean tomorrow we're going to go fill that position as a public relations manager. However, it leaves us a space for what I think, at least, the vision that we've been working on is taking us, the direction it's taken us. So go ahead.
Okay. So our 3 career tracks are administrative, and so we have people who are in positions that can see some room for growth, which is great for employee retention. And we have legislative, and we have communications and outreach. So these are just some of the things that you all have been doing this year. So doing a lot. So we support you as you carry out your charter duties. So far, we've had 33 budget presentations and reviews. And within those budget presentations and reviews, you have also received another at least more than half a dozen, or actually more than a dozen additional reviews. So it's really more like a number closer to 50 that you've digested so far. You've reviewed benchmarks, goals, and challenges, and are evaluating your method of oversight, and you're analyzing needs for public service delivery. And among the goals that we have heard as you guys have discussed budgets is that you're looking at fiduciary transparency, planning for the future, being responsible for public funds management, and updating policies and procedures. Okay.
Thanks, Patty. On the list, Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. 2 things. The first is with regard to the public relations manager. I agree with the idea of the change. I wasn't real keen with the way that we had it last year. In the end, I voted to support, but I was going to vote no all the way up until that day. But I have a question with regard to that position as well. One of the things that we don't have, which seems pretty basic for a body of our nature, is when we get calls from constituents and they need help out of community mental health and we're not sure how to do it, we don't have somebody that's designated for that, and I think that that's something that's pretty vital for this type of office. So is that also a role that the public relations manager could take on? Because it certainly isn't a full-time job, but I don't like trying to track it down, on my own sometimes, so.
Yeah, that was we actually had public relations managers / community outreach and constituent, responses and outreach. That is kind of what is hopefully going to fall under that person.
Okay, that would be really helpful. And then the second thing is, and
Commissioner Kleinfeld, just so you know, this position also will be kind of an evolving position, and we'll certainly sit down with everybody before it actually, we lock in the actual responsibilities to get the best grouping from everybody on that type of situation. Right?
Okay, thank you. the other thing is, and I brought it up last year with regard to conferences and training. We've got 12,950, and there are 13 of us, and we have a staff. And I don't know that all of our staff has gone through training with regard to the Open Meetings Act and the Freedom of Information Act. It's something that comes up over and over again. I actually think we could bring in our attorney to do something with respect to that. But the Washington trip is an example. My understanding was that commissioners were paying their own way. That's what was conveyed to me. And so I went to my husband and he said, well, okay, we'll pay for it. And I called Mac and I said, listen, could you throw in like $400 towards my trip? And the director, Mac, said, you're not gonna pay for it. We want you to be there. But then I read in the newspaper that my understanding was not actually accurate with respect to the other commissioners. And this has happened before. So I'm really adamant this year, I let it go last year, each commissioner should have an allotment that belongs to them. And if they don't use it, that's fine. It could go into the general pot of the rest of the travel money. But one commissioner shouldn't be told no, and other commissioners are told yes. And nobody's going to the Michigan Association of County conferences, which is specific to our job, but people are traveling to other things. And I don't have an issue with that. But I do have an issue with I was just getting ready to pull out a checkbook for a couple $1,000, because of course I was staying the night and everything, but if I had paid for my own, I would have been quite upset to find out I was the only one to do that. So I really think that this number should increase, number one, because I think the board chair has to have a fair amount for them to travel, because they're going to have things that the rest of us don't necessarily have to do. But I also think there should be money in the pot for commissioners, and I think there should be a dedicated amount for each commissioner, and then maybe some left over. So it isn't all like, okay, I have 12, I have 1,000, we each have 1,000, there's 13 and that's it. But I want to increase that, and I would like an allotment. So that's my 2 cents, and if it doesn't make it into the recommendation sheet this year, I will be raising it as Sabatini did last year on some issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner
Actually,
Vermont.
if you don't mind, Crystal has had training on Open Meetings Act. She's pretty much, she's got a binder, and she's really good at it. So she could probably run a little session for the rest of the staff if that's a concern for you, and we can go over that.
Yeah, I would. Again, the document for our closed session today is a public document. I've brought that up every month, I think, for about 4 or 5 months. It's still a public document. It will be one tomorrow. It will be one next month when it comes in. But it still gets marked confidential, and it still doesn't show up on the website. So I don't know how to get us there, because I keep bringing it up.
That is, if the attorney's, Corporation Counsel marks it confidential, we don't change it. So that's how it's entered.
Okay. Well, we have a discrepancy because he says it's a public document. So I don't know how we get there, if there could be communication.
It might be just a matter of.
But I do think
teaching
also,
Mo how to put it in.
not just the staff, I think that the board itself should have training on the Open Meetings Act and I think that's very important.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the other thing could be addressed through some sort of office policy that.
Thank you, Veronica. Next on the list, Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 things here, if I may. Relating back to the somewhat new staff, being a somewhat new commissioner myself, well, new 11 months, along with 3 other commissioners for a total of 4. I don't know what your previous staff was like, Patty, but I tell you what, and I'm speaking for myself, and I'm sure I'm speaking for them, I'm 100% satisfied with your current staff. They cannot do enough for us to make us knowledgeable enough in helping along with our jobs, and that's a big thing. Especially, I've had previous experience working with a council. Some of my commissioners have not, my new commissioners, and just the wave of going into this new position has been extremely easy for me with the staff that you have. And I shouldn't bring that up because they're going to ask for more money, I guess. But they are. I'm telling you, you've got a great staff. And at that time, while I'm blowing smoke, I might as well blow a little more smoke. I've been on a council, and I bring this up all the time, 19, almost 20 years. I have never, in those 19 or 20 years, and I mean this sincerely from my heart, worked with a more professional group of people, being my commissioners, that they have in this particular boardroom. And I'm proud to say that I'm a commissioner with these people. And I should have probably set this up sooner, but I had to get a take on all of you, and it took me a little while to do this. But I mean that. I'm very satisfied with what's going on. I'm satisfied with your group, and I'm really proud to serve with these commissioners. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Joe. Any other questions, comments for Patty? Thanks, Patty. And we do have a motion on the floor. Please vote. Receive and file. Thank you. Go on to item number, so your closed session. We did a motion to go in closed session, moved by Kraft, supported by Lucido. Please vote to go into closed session for pending litigation. Okay, so we're back in regular session, Commissioners. Item number 10, we need a motion for the commemoration of the Basilian Order of St. Josaphat on their 400th anniversary.
Mr. Chairman, this is going to be the Brazilian Order of St. Basil the Great, not of St. Josaphat.
Okay.
And that's in the process of being changed as we speak.
All right, so let's move.
And an Our Father.
Moved by Duzyj, supported by Carabelli, and we'll
Sure.
take a vote, please. Okay, passes. Item number 11, any new business, Commissioners? New business?
Thank you, one and all.
You're welcome. New business, Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention really briefly, on Saturday I participated in a panel put on by the Junior Leadership Macomb group. It's the high school version of Leadership Macomb that we have in the county. And if anybody has a chance to go to any of their events, I would absolutely recommend it. There are about 45 students from all across the county, and they had some great questions for us. So if anybody gets a chance, please go visit them. They would really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank
Commissioner.
you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Any other new business? No new business. Go on to public comment. Anyone from the public? Seeing no one from the public, meeting is adjourned.